Well, I started out in Mobile, Alabama. Of course, before I start there, that's like I said, the reason I was walking the way I was, my wife told me, said if I'd have hit one more home run, I wouldn't have broken my leg. I'd have been able to step around the bases rather than slide. But no, that's kidding. I started out in Mobile, Alabama, 1934 I was born. Born from Herbert and Estella Aaron. There was 8 of us, 8 kids. And we lived in the country, of course. Father was a man that worked from week to week. Sometimes he made $14 and sometimes he made $8. But I tell a lot of people that I was a vegetarian before many people knew what a vegetarian was. So that's the only thing that we ate was vegetables. We ate what we grew in the field. But I had it was a very good childhood, really. My mother was very strict. To this day, I can honestly say, even back then, long time ago, that I never remember her being out of the house at 8 o'clock. When dark came, she was there for us, really. My father, he was somewhat of a confused athlete, wanted to play baseball and never got the chance to play. But he had a baseball team himself, a little baseball team. In fact, I was talking to a friend of mine about a week ago. I was telling them they wanted to know how I got started playing baseball. And I said, well, I got started playing baseball because my father had a baseball team and he had a pickup truck. On the back of the pickup truck, he had a little small Coca-Cola freezer that he kept Coca-Colas in. And as we would go play baseball, he would tell me, he said, now, until you sell all the Coca-Colas in this box, you can't play baseball. And sure enough, when I got to the ballpark, that's the only thing I wanted to do was sell those Coca-Colas because I wanted to play baseball. And sure enough, about the 5th inning, all the Cokes were gone, and in comes some friend of mine and said, Hank, well, Henry it was called, Henry, you are up next. You're the one that's going to be at bat. And I walked up to the plate, and I started hitting the ball. And so I started playing with people that was much, especially baseball players, that was much older than me. And so that was the start of my baseball career, the start of my life. But now that, that if we move forward quickly, is that I said there was 8 of us, and now there are only 3 of us. I've lost 5 siblings so far. They're no longer here with us. And of course, my sister who is in Atlanta, and a brother in Atlanta, and myself. So these are the only 3 that is alive right now.
And that house you grew up in is an historic monument in Mobile, Alabama?
Yes, it's been moved from the place in which I was born to the baseball park. So that's where it is now, sits in the baseball park. In fact, inside of the house is my mother's dress that she cherished very much. It's an old dress, and she loved it, and it's now in the house in which I was born in.
You, as Augie suggested, you were a hero to so many of us for your excellence and your grace. Who were your heroes growing up?
Well, in sports, of course, Jack Robinson was my hero, of course, about that. And I don't know that we had many heroes, really. I would have to say my mother and my father was probably my biggest hero, My mother was someone that she didn't tell you to do things. I'll tell you a story about my mother. It's just true. She never would spank us. She wouldn't do anything. If you did something wrong, she would just say, I'll wait till the weekend when your dad is here. And sure enough, you'd be lying in bed and you could hear them talking, and your mother would say, my dad's name was Herbert. And she would say, Herbert? She said, you know what you gotta do tomorrow? You gotta go in there and get that boy. And he said, which ones? It's called me man, but Henry, I want you to go in there and get at me. Stella, that's what she called my mother. My mother was Stella. She said, I'm gonna get him. So the next day, I'll wake up, I'll try to be as good as I could. You know, I had water in it, everything, but anyhow, he called me in his room. Come here, boy, come here a minute. I want to talk to you. I said, oh my God. Then he'd tell you to go outside, get a switch. And he would depend on you getting the right kind of switch, because if it break, then that means that you got twice as big a whooping coming, you know. So he would get it and he would tie it up. And he said, well, he said, you know what you did. Come on. And then he would start beating on you. You know, I mean, really. But that's the way my mother would chastise us. You know, she never would spank us because she just said, I don't have time. I have to chastise them a different way.
You mentioned, Henry, that Jack Robinson was a hero to you.
Yes.
Why so? How did he inspire you? You overlapped in the major leagues for 2 years, 3 years.
Right.
Talk about your experience with Jack Robinson.
Well, I played against Jackie for about 5 years when he's with the Brooklyn Dodgers. And what he taught me that baseball was a game that no matter what you did today, it was only good for, he would always say, for wrapping dead fish in. Because he said that people didn't think about what you did today. You could have maybe 7,500 people at the ballpark tonight, and those 7,500 people may see you hit one grand slam or may see you hit 2 or 3 base hits. He said, but the next night, he said, those same people who come out to the ballpark will be booing you, and simply because of the fact that that's the way baseball is. It's what you do for me today. And he said, that's where you have to approach the game. He said, until you realize one thing in baseball, that the only way you're gonna help your ball club is that when you leave this batter's box, that you can touch all the bases and come back and touch home plate, and you've made a run for your team. And he taught me that. And so I live with that, because for many years, I think I led the league in runs batted in, and not home runs, but runs batted in, and also runs scored. Mm-hmm. And simply because I always thought about what Jackie always said. So that was one of the things that he taught me how to do.
But he also used baseball to achieve something greater. And that seems to be a lesson that you took to heart as well in your career.
The thing I think that I learned from Jackie was the fact that in spite of all of the things that he went through, he wanted the playing field to be level. You know, he thought that at times that things was not equally as fair with him as they could have been.
Right.
Yeah.
You were the last player in the major leagues to have played in the Negro Leagues.
Right.
Talk, if you would, about the transition from the Negro Leagues to the majors.
Well, in the Negro League, you know, we had, there were 4 teams. There was the Indianapolis Clowns, the Montgomery Barons, and so forth. And I played with the Indianapolis Clowns. And the money that we made $200 a month, and we got $1.50, we got $1 a day for meal money. I had a friend of mine named Jenkins who sat beside me, and the two of us. And what we would do, we would take the $1, I would give him my $1, he would put his $1 together, and then we would buy a big jar of peanut butter. And I mean a huge jar of peanut butter. I don't know whether any of these kids know what I'm talking about, but this peanut butter, it was huge, and it was so stiff. I mean, I somehow, you know, when you taste it, it get right here and it's almost choke you. But what I learned in playing in the Negro League was the fact that, and we would play 3 games a day. Wouldn't play one doubleheader. We would play 3 games. We play, for an example, we play a doubleheader in Washington, D.C., and then go to Baltimore and play a night game. But at 18, I was 17, 18, just out of high school. It didn't matter to me. I could play 5 games. It didn't matter to me. But playing in that league taught me the discipline of saying, hey, you know, the thing that Jack had taught me before is that what you see in baseball today is not what you're going to see tomorrow.
Right, right. What made you unique as a ball player?
I think what made me unique as a baseball player was the fact that I approached every game a little bit different than just the average ball player. I used to see baseball players sometimes stand in the mirror or make sure that their socks was this high, they comb their hair, and et cetera. I felt like, you know, that there was absolutely nobody that walked out on the pitching mound that could probably get me out. Now, that wasn't true all the time. But I felt confidence in my ability to play the game. I felt like there was absolutely nothing in baseball that I couldn't do.
What gave you that confidence when other ball players lack the confidence?
Because I think they didn't understand their skills, a lot of them, you know, and a lot of them would read what happened yesterday. You know, if they hit a game-winning home run tonight, they thought that they could go on and live off that for the rest of the week,
right.
You know.
Right. And that's what strikes me about, in looking at your numbers, the numbers you posted, is the consistency. You always put up great numbers year over year over
right.
year over year. Every day you got up to the plate, you did something. And it's remarkable to me, in your 22-year history, home runs are consistent. You know, you've got a consistent number of home runs every single year. There's a work ethic there. Where did you get that prodigious work ethic?
I think I got it within myself, you know, really. I learned a long time ago that in baseball, if you didn't bring something new to the plate or do something new, then you wasn't making any progress. You know, I felt like, you know, my first year in baseball, of course, I made the salary was $5,000 a year. That's what we made. I got $5,000 a year, and that was as much money. That was a lot of money for me. I never seen that much money. $5,000. That's a lot of money. And when I got $5,000, I said, now, you know, if I can just have myself 3 or 4 more good years, I can probably make $15,000. You know, and I looked at it that way. You know, I felt like that's the way I had approached the game. You know, I approached the game as saying, I got to do the very best that I can to reach my goal, you know.
And when did it occur to you that you could beat Babe Ruth's all-time home run record?
I think about 4 years before I did it, before I broke the record.
About 1970?
Yeah, I thought I could break his record.
What made you? What gave you that confidence?
I felt like if I stayed healthy and didn't get hurt seriously, that I could play for a long time. You know, I played 23 years. In the last 2 years, it was nothing. You know, really, I couldn't get myself up to play like I could, say, when I first got into the league.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That record, of course, is the most was the most hallowed in sport. That all-time home run record. But on reflecting on that moment, which we heard at the top of the program, you said, what should have been the best time in my life was the worst, all because I was a black man. Something was taken from me I've never gotten back. Can you talk about that experience of overtaking the Babe and securing that record?
I think that most people thought that I was in the game just to try and break a record, you know. And I think that some of the things that bothered me about that was the fact that so many sports writers thought that, you know, that the only thing I wanted to do was break the record. and that was not true. I wanted to have good years, you know.
Yeah.
But some of the most important thing the thing that happened to me was that the last 2 years before I broke the record, whether the last year before I broke the record, was one that, you know, I don't talk about that much.
Yeah.
Because it bothers me, because at that time I had 2 kids and both of them was in college. They wasn't allowed to walk home from school. They had to have an escort. I had to live away from my teammates. I had to live in another part of the hotel. I had to have someone bring meals to me. And so all of these things, you know, I just felt like that the whole thing, the whole system was backwards, you know. And it wasn't because of me breaking the record, it was because of the color of my skin.
Right, right.
And I thought that was what I thought, the reason that they were so against it.
And you tied the record at the end of the 1973
Yes.
season, and you broke it in the beginning of the 1974 season, so there was a long off season there.
Right.
Where you felt the sting of virulent racism regarding to the record and regarding to a black man challenging the legendary Babe Ruth, white man. What was that off season like for you?
It was terrible. Well, of course, I got married. My wife is great. You know, great for
That is to say, it was great. This is, if I may,
Yes.
Henry, this is Billy Aaron,
Yes.
the wife of Henry Aaron, who was here for the Civil Rights Summit last year, and unfortunately, Henry Aaron could not be here due to some surgeries that he was having. But Billy, it's wonderful to have you back.
Thank you. But
So it was a great time in your life, is what you were saying.
yes, it was a great time. But you know, one of the things that everybody started saying: don't walk across the street. Make sure you walk at the lights. Be careful. Be careful. Be careful. But my life I had a wonderful one. Things were just great. You know, I started out in spring training, and I hit the home run in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And of course, the thing that bothered me about that was the fact that the commissioner got so involved in it. You know,
Right.
Commissioner Bowie Kuhn, you know, he got so involved. He had said that if I didn't play 2 out of the 3 games in Cincinnati, that he was going to fine me and probably suspend me for a few games, you know. And I couldn't figure that one out. But I did hit a home run opening day in Cincinnati, and God would have it that I hit the home run in Atlanta when we opened the season there.
Yeah. With Jimmy Carter in attendance. Jimmy Carter was
Yes,
here.
we had a lot of celebrities there that
Yeah,
night.
you sure did.
Yes. Yeah.
What was, when you hit that ball, did you know it was gone?
Oh yeah, I guess. Yeah. You hit so many of them. You got a feeling that when
Some of us don't know that feeling,
Yeah.
Henry.
Yes. Yes.
But you knew it.
I knew it was gone. Yes. I really knew I was going to hit the home run that night.